Good morning, students. This is section 1 of Unit 4, The Dignity of Work. Martin Luther King Jr. says that all labor that uplifts humanity has dignity and importance and should be undertaken with painstaking excellence. A Journey Through the Desert is a touching story about the power of storytelling. In this story, the teacher will tell us how her story changed the life of the young boy Ram. Can listening to or reading stories influence our lives? Let us read the chapter and find out. Till a few years back, I did not have a driver and used to drive everywhere myself. The petrol station where I filled petrol from had a service station beside it. Some Saturdays I would take my car to that service station and stay there until it was serviced. There were two boys, perhaps 15 years of age, who worked there. They were identical twins. One was called Ram and the other Gopal. They were very poor and did not go to school, yet they could speak many languages. So, students, in this first paragraph, the teacher tells us that when she did not have a driver, she used to drive by herself and she used to go to the petrol pump to fill the petrol. And she also says that there is a service station nearby and she used to go there and used to sit there for 2 hours because it takes 2 hours to complete the servicing of the vehicle. She also introduces us to the two boys and they are called as Ram and Gopal. They are identical twins. And she also says that though they do not go to school, yet they could speak many languages. Though Bangalore is the capital of Karnataka, Kannada is not the only language spoken here. There are many people who have come from outside the state and settled in this beautiful city. Hence, Bangalore has become very cosmopolitan. These boys had met many people during their work at the station and so could speak Kannada, which was their mother tongue, and also Tamil, Telugu, and Hindi. Ram and Gopal worked as errand boys. They were always very cheerful and everyone liked them. The servicing of my car used to take about 2 hours. The boys would bring a chair for me and I would sit under the shade of a tree and read some books. Here, the teacher tells us that Bangalore is the capital of Karnataka and this city has become very cosmopolitan. And the word cosmopolitan means composed of people from many different regions and cultures. So we come to know from this paragraph that the mother tongue of these two boys is Kannada, and they also knew to speak not only their mother tongue but also some other languages which are like Tamil, Telugu, and Hindi. Why? Because during their work time they have met so many peoples who came to Bangalore and settled in this beautiful city. The word errand boys means persons whose job involves carrying messages, buying something, or delivering goods. So these boys were doing this type of work, but still they were very cheerful, they were always happy, and they are loved by everyone. They were very concerned about the teacher and they used to bring the chair and make her sit under the shade and then she used to read the books. because she have to wait for 2 hours in order to complete the servicing. Over a period of time, I became friendly with them and they told me about their life. They did not have a father. Their mother worked as a laborer. They stayed in a nearby slum with their uncle. They had studied up to class 4 but then had to drop out as they were too poor to continue. So in this paragraph, the teacher and these boys becomes friendly and they shares about their life, that they did not have a father and they have a mother but she works as a laborer. So they stay with their uncle in the nearby slum area. They also used to go to the school and they have studied only till class 4 and then they have to drop it as they were very poor to pay for their studies. There was nobody who could guide and teach them at home. Though the salary at the service station was not much, they got free breakfast and lunch and sometimes small tips from the car owners. They had no fixed working hours. They came around 8 in the morning and went home only by 8 p.m. Sunday was the only holiday they got. So, as they are working as an errand boys in this service station, they used to get less salary, but they are given free breakfast and lunch and sometimes small tips from the car owners. And they had no fixed time. They used to come early in the morning at 8 and then go home by 8 p.m. And then they have just one day holiday, and that is on Sundays. In spite of all the difficulties they faced, these kids were always smiling. They never said no or grumbled about any work they were told to do. I have seen children in many well off families with grumpy faces and no happiness. If you ask them to do any work, they give you hundreds of reasons to avoid it. I suppose happiness does not depend on the amount of money in the bank. In this paragraph, the teacher tells us that though these boys had to face difficulties, they were always smiling, they were always happy, and they never grumbled at the work that is given to them. But in today's world, we see that in most of the well off families, the rich families, children are not happy. Though they have everything in their home, though they get whatever they ask to their parents, they are not happy and they have a grumpy face. Here, the word grumpy means bad tempered, unhappy. They are not ready to obey their parents or to do the things that are told to them. So, happiness does not come from the money you have in the bank, but it comes from within you. I used to really like these two boys for their enthusiasm. Once in a while, I took snacks and some old shirts for them. They took the clothes with great joy, as if they were made of silk, but I never saw them wear those clothes. When I asked, they said, "Madam, we always wear dirty clothes to work because at the station they become greasy." In this paragraph, the teacher is touched by their enthusiasm. The word enthusiasm means a strong feeling of excitement and interesting in something. So, this teacher was touched by their enthusiasm and brought some clothes and snacks for them, and they took it with great joy. But she has never seen them wearing those clothes, so she asked them, and then what did they say? They said that since they work in the station, it becomes greasy. Greasy means covered in a lot of oil. So they wear only the dirty ones for the work. Once I took some storybooks for them, thinking they could read them at night. After all, while other children of their age were studying in school and attending hockey and chess tournaments, these boys were slogging to make both ends meet. But when I gave them the storybooks, their faces became pale, and for the first time ever, I saw a trace of unhappiness on their faces. They said, "Madam, it takes a lot of time for us to read as we are not used to reading. Will you tell us the story?" "How can I tell you the story here when you are working all the time? We get some free time at about 4 o'clock. If you come then to have your car serviced, we can sit with you and listen to the story." In this paragraph, the narrator brings and give a storybooks to these children so that they can read at night, because the children of their age are studying in the school, whereas these boys are slogging. Slogging means working hard at a difficult job. And when they were given the storybooks, they were unhappy, and this was the first time that the teachers saw them being unhappy. Why were they unhappy? They were unhappy because it they are not used to reading, and it will take a lot of time. So they asked the teacher to tell them the story, and then the teacher replies that how can she teach them as they are working all the time. And then they replied that they get free time at about 4 o'clock, so they would hear from her when she comes for the car servicing. Their two pairs of eyes were begging me for the stories, and I could not say no. I remembered how my own children always insisted I tell them stories at night. I agreed. So it became a routine for me to tell them stories on Saturday evenings. I went there even if my car did not need to be serviced. They were very attentive when I told my stories and waited eagerly for more. This went on for many months. Then I decided to get a driver and stopped driving the car myself. My driver took the car for servicing after that, and I did not meet Ram and Gopal for a long time. Now, as these two boys have requested the teacher to tell them the stories, she could not deny them. So like as a route, it has become a routine for her that she goes on every Saturdays and tell them the stories. Whether she need to service her car or not, she used to go and tell the stories, and they were very attentive and eager for more stories. But later on, as she got a driver, she stopped driving the car by herself, and then the driver used to go and do the servicing. So she did not get to meet Ram and Gopal for a long time. Time flows like water. One day, after almost a decade, my driver complained about a problem with the car. I told him to get it repaired. My old car had outlived its life but was still working. When my driver came back from the garage, he said, "After working on the car, the mechanic asked about you. Do you know the owner of Good Luck Garage?" "I have not heard the name. Is it a new garage?" "It is relatively new. I always prefer to go to garages owned by youngsters. This young man is very sincere. It seems he has known you for a long time. He asked if you were still teaching in the college." Now, some 10 years later, the car of this teacher had a problem. It has outlived. So the driver went to repair it, and then after returning from the garage, he told the teacher that the owner of the Good Luck Garage was asking about her, whether she is still teaching in the college. Now, here the word relatively new means compared to other garages, this was new, and the teacher have never heard about this new garage. I could not think of anyone I knew who could be owning the garage now. Since my driver did not even know his name, I was unable to place him and assume it was some old student of mine. Though since I teach computer science, I could not figure out how this person had shifted to automobile engineering. Later, when my driver told me a second time that the owner of the garage had asked about me, I felt I should go and meet this man who took such keen interest in my welfare. Now she is confused that who can this person be, because she teaches computer science and she could not figure out because how can a computer science student be shifted to an automobile engineering. So, after hearing the second time from her driver, she thought of going to the garage and meet this person who has a keen interest in her welfare. The next day, I went to Good Luck Garage. It was a fairly modern garage and well equipped. There was a glass cabin where I assumed the owner was sitting. As soon as I entered, a handsome young man, in blue overalls, greeted me. He was holding a spanner and a screwdriver in his hand. Madam, please come and sit in the cabin. I'll wash my hands and join you in a minute. I sat on the sofa in his office. It was a nice, functional office. The young man looked vaguely familiar to me. I knew I had met him somewhere but could not place him. I wondered if I had taught this boy in pre university. At the time, the boys are 16 or 17 years old, adolescents with a lot of energy. When I meet them after they have grown up, I often fail to recognize them. Now, when she reaches the garage, a young man welcomes her and tells her to sit in the cabin, and then he would join her after a few minutes. And then she sat in on the sofa in his office, and the office was looking very functional, practical, and useful without any decoration. And then she wonders whether she had taught this boy in the pre university, because students studying in pre university are of 16 or 17 years old, and when she meet them after they have grown up, she would not recognize them. So students, that's all for today's class. We'll continue the rest of the lesson in the next class.